Here we go. Hello and welcome to Live from America podcast. This is Hatem alongside me, one of the comic star, Noam Dworman, good friend. Hello, Noam.
Hello, Hatem.
Our guest of honor, I'm really looking forward to this. Dr. Afshon Ostovar. He is an associate professor at the Naval Postgraduate School, a senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, the author of the award-winning book, Vanguard of the Imam, Religion, Politics, and Iran's Revolution Guards, and the author of the forthcoming book, Wars of Ambition, the United States, Iran, and the struggle for the Middle East. Today, he's joined us here. And disclaimer, everything he says is just his opinion, does not represent the institute where he works. Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thanks for having me.
Hello.
What?
I said hello.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to this because I think I would love to get like a deeper understanding of Iran, because it seems like every conflict, they're always involved somehow. But and I have so many questions. I'm sure Norm will have questions as well. But before that, why should the average person that only cares about what's going on in the United States nationally, why they should care about Iran and its policies and all that?
Well, I don't know if they should, frankly. I would like to care a lot less about Iran, frankly. I'd like to care a lot less about the Middle East. It's a depressing thing to sort of focus on and think about. But I would say this: if you care about war, if you care about conflict, if you would like to see less of it in the world, then paying attention to Iran and what it does in the world is important, because they are, as you said, involved in a lot of conflicts. And unlike some countries who are sort of involved in conflicts sort of that aren't of their own making, Iran is involved in conflicts that are entirely either of its own making or through the pursuit of its own sort of agenda. And I think that's I think that's a problem, and something that people should care about if they care about this sort of stuff.
So if we try to understand Iran, the political system, I know there's a supreme leader, there's a president, and then there's also IRGC. So
Yeah.
how do you become a supreme leader? Who's in charge? Who runs the country? Who do you does the military? Because I know a lot in the Middle East, the military is in charge. So can you tell us like the difference between the president, supreme leader, and the military in Iran? And who's in charge? Who runs things?
Iran is a theocracy, which means that it's a religious state run by a religious leader, and that's who the supreme leader is. He's kind of the Pope of Iran, if you will, but a Pope with real authority for state decision making, right? Within the Islamic Republic of Iran, you have two forms of power. You have unelected institutions of power, and you have elected institutions of power. The unelected institutions of power are the ones that have actual influence over policy decision making and stuff like that. The supreme leader is the guy. He's the guy that makes the decision. But the Revolutionary Guards, which is the main military in Iran, they technically have no role in decision making, but they are so influential within the system and with the supreme leader himself that they, in effect, make most important decisions, particularly when we talk about foreign policy. Domestic policy, it's a little bit different. The elected government of Iran, which includes the president, is elected from a group of people that the supreme leader allows to run. So that it's not just anybody that gets to run. It's only somebody that the supreme leader likes and allows and will tolerate. And the president has actually very little power in Iran. The main power that they have is kind of steering money this way or that way in the budget, which they have a little autonomy over, and basically the bully pulpit. They represent the president and the foreign minister represent Iran in international affairs, so they can say theoretically whatever they want, so long as they're willing to risk it. So they can have power that way. They can kind of shape Iran's policies by sort of being the ones who articulate them. But the real power in Iran is with the supreme leader.
And how do you become supreme leader? Like, is there Like his son become this next supreme leader, or is it like?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question because you've only ever had two. The first one was Ruhollah Khomeini, who was the leader of the revolution. And it was his idea that created the theocracy in Iran. And his idea was that clergy, the Islamic clergy, because they are the wisest in religion, and because Islam, in his conception, is a total system of knowledge, meaning that it incorporates politics, it incorporates economy, morality, all that kind of stuff. His argument was, okay, the people who know Islam the best should be the people who run the country, not people who don't know religion best. And the clergy were those people. And so he made this idea that a senior cleric, a guy with a gray beard, a turban, a lot of education behind him, was the type of person who should be in charge of the country. And because he was the leader of the revolution, he became the first guy. When he died in 89, the Islamic Republic was kind of in a crisis because Khomeini had sidelined or marginalized or blacklisted everybody who was like him. There was no longer a senior cleric like him that had any sort of political clout anymore. So instead, they chose a relatively junior cleric who had the political cachet to lead the Islamic Republic, and that was this guy named Ali Khamenei. And Ali Khamenei is still the supreme leader now, but that was over 30 years ago. Is that right? 30? Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, 35 years. Anyway, a long time. And by that time, he's grown into sort of, a senior, cleric himself. So he's 85 years old. He may die someday. You assume he will. When he does, they're going to replace him with a guy probably like him. And what's going to be important is that the person is going to be a cleric, but he's also going to have the right politics, and he's going to have the right political connections, which means that he's probably going to have to be somebody at least acceptable to the IRGC, if not somebody that the IRGC actually wants to run. So yeah, you become some, and then there's an institution within Iran called the Assembly of Experts. Technically, they elect the supreme leader, but because Iran has only ever done this changeover once, I would suggest that if it happens again, it could happen differently. But technically, that's how it'll run. The Assembly of Experts will choose some cleric that's already inside the regime to be the next guy.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
Yeah. Well, obviously, they have a because I always say that their understanding of Islam, right? They want specific, and they mostly Shia. Can you tell us about the country itself, like the people? Yeah,
so I'm glad you brought that up because it's really important to make a distinction between the Islamic Republic of Iran, which I'll say Iran for the shorthand because it's a mouthful to always say that. But that's the system, the theocratic system of government that runs Iran.
I always have this theory: whenever you have Islam in the title, it's not really Islam, but that's
Listen,
no, might disagree, but I don't know.
No, I mean, listen,
I'm joking.
Religion
what do I
becomes
know?
when you fuse religion with politics, like you have in Iran, religion becomes so fungible and so elastic that it's really hard to sort of argue where it starts and where it begins, because half the time they do things, that they say, this is Islam, this is the Sharia, this is how we do things, and then they'll do things totally different. The next time, and they'll still say it's Islam. So they contradict themselves all the time. But Iran as a country is religiously 90% Shia, about 9% Sunni, 1% everything else. The largest non-Islamic minority is the Baha'is. But you also have Zoroastrians and Christians. It's a diverse country also ethnically. So the majority of the country are Persian-speaking Iranians, but you also have Turkic-speaking Iranians like Azeris and Qashqais, and you have Armenians and Kurds and Baluch and all sorts of other little groups. But Iranian culture transcends a lot of those ethnic and religious differences. So, if you ever meet Iranians in the diaspora, for example, it doesn't matter if they're Jewish, if they're Shia, if they're Christians, they are strongly Persian. They eat Persian food. They try to hold on to their language. They like Persian poetry, all that kind of stuff. So culturally, it's a very sort of strong country. It transcends sort of the religious.
The Persian,
And
I haven't met Persian Jews trying to hold on to the language, really, not in Israel. Do they?
well, it depends, right? There are different Jewish groups in Iran, or different Iranian Jewish groups. The ones in LA strongly hold on to Persian culture. The ones in Long Island, who tend to be Mashhadi Jews, hold on to it a lot less, and have leaned into Hebrew and a lot more. So yeah, it's not across the board, but for the most part, it transcends that cultural Persian cultural tradition sort of transcends religious differences.
So what does, as a country, what does Iran wants? Because they try to promote the leaders, not
Yeah.
what they're trying to promote. Because for a while when I grew up, I was born in Kuwait. I grew up, during the war and all that. They're trying to promote that we don't want any American specifically or foreign people within the region, and Israel is their sworn enemy. They always say that, correct?
Yeah.
So that's their general policy. This is what they want. So anybody that comes in actually act on that. But I feel like their action is totally different. They try to be involved in, Hezbollah, Hamas, which is interesting to me because Hamas is Sunni and they usually don't like each other, but seems like they're working very well with Hamas. So Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis,
There's an Islamic proverb: "My enemy's enemy is my friend." You've
is
heard
it
it?
Islamic?
Yeah, of course it is.
So what is the government vision? Like what is it that they want? Do they think like we should spread the Shia? Is it religious like behind it, or is it just power? What is it exactly that they are trying to achieve?
Yeah, so it's an amalgam of revolutionary ideology and religious identity and ideology. It's like I said earlier, there is no sort of clear cut, this is Islam or this is politics or this is ideology when it comes to the Islamic Republic. It's kind of their own thing. But to make it very simple, Iran is very ambitious. The Islamic Republic is very ambitious. And they've always been ambitious, just like all revolutionaries are ambitious. They just defeated the Wicked Witch. They feel like they can take on the world, and they're really excited about that. Iran spent most of the 80s trying to do that. Wasn't very successful. The 90s, it was a bit more quiet. After 2003, it got an opening to really sort of do what it wanted to do, and it's been doing that ever since.
Why did they have the opening?
The Iran-Iraq, or the U.S. occupation of Iraq. When the U.S. went into Iraq and toppled Saddam Hussein, this created this vacuum of power within Iraq, which had been sort of the main enemy of Iran. And they were able to move in and put their allies essentially in power in Iraq, and they were able to scuttle the U.S. War in Iraq. And transform Iraq into a country that is more or less like Iran and friendly with Iran, and allows and permits Iran to kind of do whatever it wants on its territory. But the thing that they want to do, they do want to challenge U.S. supremacy in the region, which means they would like to push out the U.S. as a military presence and as a political influencer within the region. And they want to destroy Israel as a Jewish state, right? So a lot of times we think of, when they say we want to destroy Israel, we think of them actually like dropping nuclear bombs on Israel. That's not what they want to do. They want to destroy the construct of the Jewish state, which of course to Jews in Israel is destroying Israel. But those are the two main things that they want to achieve. So the way that they go about this is by having this very aggressive game plan in the region, by supporting groups that are hostile to either the United States or to Israel or to both, or to the US partners and allies in the region, like the Saudis or the Emiratis or things like that. This is what ties Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis all together, is that they are all, outwardly and committed to either destroying Israel or destroying the U.S. presence in the region, or both. So Iran is committed and has committed, almost the entirety of its sort of foreign policy budget, if you will, to sort of pursuing this agenda, right? And this is what brings Iran to Iraq. It's what brings Iran to Syria. It's what brings Iran to Lebanon. It's what brings Iran to Yemen, and it's what brings Iranian weapons like missiles and drones to all of those countries. It's all very Israel centric for Iran, yeah, so that's what they're trying to achieve.
No, did you want to say something?
No.
So why is, main thing is like Israel destruction or the Jewish state? Is it a religious thing? Is it a person? Like, why did they pick specifically Israel? Because I don't see them. Like, I know that a lot of people, when they're like anti-Israel, obviously there's some a lot of anti-Semitic, but anti-Israel sometimes because of the action to the Palestinian or stuff like that. But I don't think that Iran really cares about all this. Why is that hatred towards Israel? Why they want to destroy it?
Yeah, so it's
just to get points.
Well, it's kind of ironic, right? Because they're doing all of this despite it not being at all popular with the Iranian people. The majority of Iranian people, probably 60%, if not more, of the Iranian people don't like the Islamic Republic, don't see any legitimacy for the Islamic Republic, and don't agree with the Islamic Republic's foreign policy, in large part because it's bankrupted the country and it's made their lives kind of miserable. And they also don't like to be alienated. They don't like to be thought of as warmongers or whatever. But the reason that Iran started to do it, this was all 1979. Before 1979, Iran was one of the only Muslim countries that had relations with Israel, and it had strong relations with Israel under the Shah. So one of the points of difference that Khomeini could sort of bring up with the Shah was the Shah's relationship with Israel. And so he used anti-Israel rhetoric during the revolution, in the early years of the revolution, as a way to sort of create this distinction between them and the Shah, but also as a way to get other Muslim countries, Arab states as well in the region, to kind of join league with the Islamic Republic, right? They were trying to find an issue that could unify the Muslim world in a way that could galvanize opinion and behavior against the United States and against Israel. And because, Israel and the Palestinian issue is a really important issue in the Arab world and in the Muslim world more broadly, it seemed like it was a good choice to pick. The problem was this didn't work out for Iran, and it still really hasn't fully worked out for Iran, because everything else that Iran was talking about was something that nobody wanted to go along with, right? So Iran it became a Shia theocracy. And so if you talk about, all the Sunni states that neighbored Iran, even if they shared Iran's sort of agenda with Israel, they didn't want to adopt this politics, that was anti-monarchical. Remember, half these countries are still monarchies, or radically Shia or anything like this. So they didn't trust Iran's intentions here. And frankly, they still don't trust Iran's intentions regarding Israel. So that's how it started. But then it just became kind of this self-fulfilling goal, right? Where it was kind of the North Star of the Islamic Republic and their foreign policy. And, they spent a generation and a half moving in that direction, and they don't want to quit. All of their money, all of their effort, all of their investments for the last, several decades have all been poured into this one issue. And from their perspective, they're finally gaining ground, and so, yeah, they don't want to quit it. I mean, the irony is, if they did quit it, things would be a lot better for Iran.
So what do they want the outcome to be?
Well, for starters, they want to destroy the Jewish state, right? They know that they can't do this militarily. Iran can't just sort of pick up its tanks and march across Iraq and Jordan and then go to war with Israel.
Okay, but before you answer, why
Yeah.
do they want to destroy the Jewish state?
Because they see it as illegitimate. They see it as
why do they care if it's illegitimate? That's not a reason to want to destroy a state. I'm sure there's other illegitimate states.
I mean, they see it as a colonial enterprise, and they're anti-colonial
as opposed to. That still doesn't sound right. Like, there's a lot of colonial enterprises out there.
Yeah.
Why do they want to destroy Israel?
Well, I can only explain it how they explain it, right? I'm not justifying it. I don't agree with the position.
I don't accuse you of justifying it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
What kind of country devotes, a healthy part of its GDP to over years, it puts itself in all this situation vis-a-vis the rest of the world, cuts off trade, takes on sanctions because they want to destroy a colonialist enterprise? That's not the reason.
Well, what
I don't know what the reason is. I'm saying, I mean, I'm asking you, but clearly that's not the reason.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't know if you're looking for something sort of more apocalyptic or whatever, but listen, you don't politics don't have to be reasonable, right? Politics don't have to be reasonable, and
yes, they do.
These can be unreasonable politics. The fact is that they see themselves as anti-imperialists, anti-colonialists. They see the world moving in one way. They see history moving in one way.
I wasn't expecting. I figured you would just answer something different, but what you're not mentioning is anti-Semitic. Like, you don't think the Jewish part? Like, I cannot believe you're saying anti-colonialist, anti-imperialist. Not once you're mentioning the fact that it's because they're Jewish. Like if this was some other, if Japan had some, I don't know, did they want to liberate the Falkland Islands? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, listen, anti-Semitism is a part of it, right? And anti-Semitism is actually really strong in Iran. It was strong during the Shah's time.
It's part of the language of every single declaration they make about this issue. They don't claim it's about anti-imperialists. It's about Jews. I could Google it now and find you 10 quotes.
Yeah, listen, I'm not disagreeing with you that it's anti-Semitic. Right, but you can also Google it and find that they use the language of colonialism, imperialism.
So you believe that this is about Iran is just so irked by colonialism that this is why they're ready to go through all this trouble to get rid of a colonialist state?
No, I think it's political. I think it's purely political. I think it's anti-Semitic. I think it's political. I think that they think that this is the way that they galvanize the Muslim world on their side. That this
why
is an enemy.
Why is Hezbollah against Israel?
Well, I mean, you have political reasons, but you also have the general anti-Semitic reasons too, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess to me, we may be talking about the same thing in different words, but I mean, anti-Semitism is clearly part of it.
I think there's a lot of times, like with Iran specifically, they say stuff like this, like it's they promote themselves. They think that this is, when they put Jews as a target and stuff, they think they're gonna get points with their own people or with other people. And when they fund or I don't know if they create Hezbollah, I don't know, but if they fund or create like Hezbollah or Hamas or Houthis and stuff like that, they're not really the one doing the fighting. Like, they're putting other people, and they do it in a way that they want it to be continuous, stuff. But I think a lot of times they want to gain points. They say, like, look, we are the sworn enemy of the Jews, of the Jewish people. We want to destroy them everywhere, like all the stuff that they say, but I think that especially the leaders of Iran, they just talk. Like, I think they're just trying to gain points. They not really want to do anything, if they have a chance.
Meaning that they don't want to fight themselves.
And they don't want to lose their power. Like, if it comes to power, like I don't think that they would, if they could lose their power and start a war, they would not do it. But they will fund everybody else to create that thing.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're doing, right? They pour weapons into Lebanon, they pour weapons into Gaza, or did. They pour weapons into Syria and Iraq. All of these weapons are aimed at Israel. All of them are aimed at Israel population centers, right? Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, hopes that by concentrating on Israel, by focusing on Israel, that they can unite Muslims broadly against both Israel and the United States, right? They don't want to just destroy a Jewish presence within the Middle East. They want to do something much bigger than that. They want to challenge a global world order, and they see like this is where it starts, right? And I think that's sort of a harder thing to appreciate, because we want to think of it in simpler terms. But these guys are really ambitious.
But I feel whenever there's a Muslim world, like Muslim getting killed in China or even Afghanistan or whatever, they don't get involved. They only get involved if it's Israel, if it's around Israel.
No, you're absolutely right. They care about some other little issues. But this is true for Iran as well as it's true for other countries. I mean, you have concentration camps for Muslims in Western China. Iran hasn't said a word about it.
Yeah.
They're totally okay with it. The Saudis haven't said a word about it. They're totally
Same thing
okay
in Africa,
with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is my point, right? There is no consistency with their Islamicness. There is no consistency with their religious fraternity or sectarianism. It's pick and choose, and it's always political. It's always geopolitical, right? They don't go after China because they need China to buy their oil. They need China to stick up for them on the UN Security Council. Iran is as good of friends with Iraq as it is with Venezuela. Any country that's willing to sort of buck the system, go against the United States, stand against it, like North Korea, they're all on board. And this is where sort of the religious aspect of their policies just sort of dissipates. It becomes entirely political, right? So the one way that they are consistent is that they are firmly moving against the United States and Israel in all of their foreign policies. But where they are really inconsistent is on the religious aspects of their foreign policies.
So if we say,
I don't know if you notice my internet's been going in and out. I don't know if you noticed that. Can I share a screen for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Because my
internet is fine.
No, it's I got disconnected. Hold on. So, hold on a second. So can you see that?
A little bit. Yes.
Okay, so I looked up. This is the Supreme Leader's Twitter. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 tweets where he mentions colonialists. One is UK, the old worn-out colonialist, has once again come to the Persian Gulf. It's really neither here. In response, Western colonialist rationale in a very sensible manner about I don't even know what this is about. Around Iranian women's achievement. Shia Sunni clashes, colonialist U.S. plot. Okay, nothing about Israel here. Then you look up the word Jewish. Western and Jewish corporation owners. The elimination of the Zionist regime means the massacre of the Jewish people. Jewish Palestinians should choose their own government, conspiring with the Jewish plutocrats, the Jewish members of Trump's family. Palestine into a Jewish settlement is a turbulent dream. It goes on and on. Jew. And then you get to the word Zionist, and it just goes for days, about the Zionist regime. I looked up imperialist also. I can do it here.
Can you look Israel as well?
Yeah, imperialist says... imperialist warmongers, nothing about Israel here about imperialist. And then Israel?
Yeah, the word is. I wonder if he ever used, because
a lot.
And I tell you the reason why.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they use Israel a lot, but the You can see Israel. So, that's that. So even within their own words, I haven't seen them talk about imperialist or colonialist about Israel. It seems to be
Yeah.
Jewish.
Listen, I don't want to get into a semantic argument about this.
It's not semantic. It's not a semantic argument.
No,
It's
listen.
it's a substantive argument.
I know, but listen, go read the books in Persian. They use these terms all the time. Like I don't want to defend that they use the term imperialist and colonialist. They clearly are anti-Semitic. I'm not trying to deny that.
What is their number one motivation for wanting to destroy Israel?
To me, it's political. It's
What
political.
does that mean, political?
It means it serves their political objective. They want to destroy the U.S. presence in the Middle East. They see Israel as the heart of that presence.
Okay.
One of the reasons I said, like, when you say when you were Google and use the word Jewish and use the word, that's why I bet that there was more Jewish than Israeli, because it's something in the Middle East that a lot of leaders, or especially in that region, or you see with Hamas, when you use the word Israel, Jewish, I mean, they always try to make it sound like enemies. You know what I'm saying? Like the way they use it. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people, so yeah, of course, there's a anti-Semitic when they say that, but the way they saying it, they trying to make it, they always trying to make that word is Jewish. It's not about religion. Jewish, all bad people. You know what I'm saying? That's what a lot of times.
I have another question. Let me explain it. So if the objective is political to get rid of America, how do they think that threatening Israel is going to decrease America's involvement in the Middle East? The more threatened Israel is, the more and more America is involved in the Middle East, the more and more likely America will put troops in the Middle East, the more and more likely that Saudi Arabia and the other Sunni countries will make a deal with America. They're not stupid people in Iran. So
I hear froze.
I think he knows. I think I know where he was going that. And I totally agree. I would disagree with the idea that they're not entirely stupid. They have a logic and they're pursuing that logic. But that logic is also, causing costs, right? The irony is, yes, they want to push American power, not just America, but American power, American influence out of the Middle East.
Bugging. But what is their logic? What is their logic?
Yeah, so they want to push American power, not just America, but American power, American influence out of the Middle East, right? They see Israel as the heart of that. They see Israel as an American construct, as an American-supported construct. Going after it is going after the heart of the American project. Why does America care about the Middle East? From their perspective, it's about Israel. So if you get rid of Israel, you get rid of American power in the region. That's how they see it. But you're absolutely right. They spend all of their time pursuing this, and it's what keeps America tethered to the Middle East.
I feel
it is counterproductive.
I feel like a lot of times people need to have the no war, no peace situation, because that serves their own agenda, because if there is time where you can make peace, or there's, Israel is no longer the enemy, or the United States the longer the enemy, people's going to start to look within. I mean, Saddam Hussein did that a lot. They're going to start looking with their country. So it's crucial for survivor, for their own agenda, to do so. Because imagine if there is, if Iran is just like Iraq now, like, I'm not saying that Iraq is a good project, but I'm saying nationally, internationally, not nationally. They are not threat to anybody. So I think the creation of the war, that Israel is a threat and we are a threat to them, that creates an importance for them, for their leaders to be there. Because if there is a real leader, in my opinion, and he's clear about his agenda, these are the enemy, then fight. These are not my enemy, then I do peace. One or the other. But to keep that no peace, no, I feel like a lot of times maybe Yasser Arafat did that a lot, which is like, could have signed a lot of peace treaties, and even if you don't think that Israel is your friend, but you can make peace and build your own state and then take it from there. But I feel like it was crucial for them to keep it that way, to keep it like the Middle East unstable. There's a lot of fears because as long as there is, they will exist. Do you agree with that, or that's my opinion?
No, I mean, listen, the Islamic Republic is founded on this idea that it is fighting this kind of forever war against the enemies of Islam, against the enemies of the revolution, right? And the main enemies are America and Iran, and people that ally with America and Iran, and American cultural influence and things like this. They need that enemy to exist in order to legitimize their project, right? So as soon as they make peace, let's say, with the United States, right? Like in the 90s when Khatami was in power and you thought that there could be sort of this reform movement. If they had peace, then all of a sudden the revolution and what it stood for no longer has any salience. It no longer has a position. What is it doing? It's just enforcing rules, right?
And just for my point as well is like when there's a direct conflict, when there is I think we lost Noam again. When there's a direct conflict, like when they killed Soleimani, or when they bomb when they bomb Iran directly, or killed Soleimani, or killed whoever, there was no respond. If you really believe that you are the revolutionists and all that, it's there's nothing. All they do is like, so that's why I think my point is valid for that reason. Is like they need to create that no peace, no war kind of thing. Even when they said we're gonna attack Israel to respond, he sent drones 7 hours to take that. Like it was so with Soleimani. Like Trump was right; they're not gonna do anything, and they didn't. That's maybe the only thing that he was.
I mean, I totally disagree with those 2 points, though.
Okay,
right? Like Iran's response to Israel wasn't just some drones. It was 300 over 300 munitions, including 110 ballistic missiles. You don't fire 110 ballistic missiles. Yes, it was telegraphed politically, but they didn't say exactly what they're going to do. You don't fire 110 ballistic missiles just to send a message. That's not throwing some pebbles at somebody's window to say like, hey, I'm outside. You throw 110 ballistic missiles to do damage. That's the only reason you do it. You can make a message with 1 ballistic missile. You can make a message with 2 drones. They send drones, they send cruise missiles, they send ballistic missiles, because all those things fly at different trajectories, at different speeds. The radar sees them in different ways. You do that to overwhelm radar so that you can penetrate, a highly defended territory, right? And that's precisely what they did.
No, I'm not downplaying what the response, but I'm saying like if they really wanted to respond, if it wasn't political respond more, that if it was a military response, they would have, I think could have done it differently. But I feel like it was a show, and nothing happened with Soleimani. What about Soleimani point?
They fired 20 ballistic missiles at U.S. forces in Iraq. It was the biggest ballistic missile attack on U.S. forces in history. It was the biggest missile attack that Iran had ever conducted. It was huge. The only reason that there wasn't a war after Iran's response to Soleimani's assassination was that President Trump decided not to respond. Any other president likely would have responded to Iran at that point. But President Trump was unique, and he thought about things in a unique way and decided that this was okay. It could have very easily led to a war. In fact, Iran was anticipating an American response and was surprised that we didn't respond. So just because things played out a certain way doesn't mean that that's how Iran envisioned them to play out, right? But you are right in the sense that Iran doesn't want to, unless it feels like it absolutely has to, doesn't want to use direct force itself, because it knows that if it does this, it can invite a bigger war. And a bigger war is something that they want to avoid, because that's not something that they can probably survive a war, but it's something that's going to be damaging. It's going to delay what they're doing. And they're having a lot of success just by, pursuing their proxy strategy the way that they've been doing it, right? I mean, what they hope is that Israel will be so sort of intertwined in conflict with the Palestinians, with Hezbollah, with Syria, that its own sort of politics and domestic situation will heat up in such a way that it will erode sort of the things that make Israel strong. That's their long-term sort of goal. And then they just hope that somehow, conditions will change and they'll be successful, but they don't think that they can do it militarily.
Okay. Noam, now that we have you, because you keep coming in and out, do you have any
Yeah,
questions?
my internet's not working. I'm going to try to just switch it. Hold on.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I know what you're saying, and I agree, but I my point was like, if they really want to be like, oh, we are so strong, we're the force, we're the leaders, I feel like it would have been a different response. But I feel anyway. So do you feel that Iran, what's Iran's plan? They trying to get nuclear weapon to be the strongest, do you think, or they try to grow their influence by supporting little militias? Like, what do you think their goal? And if they are, become very strong, what's their ambition will be? And then, we'll save the last 10 minutes to talk about the book, speaking of ambition. But
yeah. I mean, listen, they are having success with what they are doing, right? It is a recipe that is getting them kind of what they want. They're more influential in Iraq. They're influential in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen. Israel is having a hard time in Gaza. It's having a harder time politically, with the Gaza war than it is militarily with the Gaza war. All those things benefit Iran in one way or another. If it was to develop a nuclear weapon, let's say tomorrow, none of that wouldn't necessarily help them, right? Because it would harden sort of opinions against the Islamic Republic. It would break a taboo internationally of developing a nuclear weapon.
Whoa. I got to stop you. You're saying that if Iran developed a nuclear bomb, it would harden opinions against the Republic?
I think so.
And as if Hamas massacring all the Israelis hardened opinions against Hamas?
Well,
did North Korea developing a nuclear weapon harden opinions against North Korea?
I don't think it improved it. I mean, you could be right. I mean, maybe it would improve the relations with Iran. From my perspective, I think it would harden opinions against Iran.
It would. And what are your opinions even meant? It would certainly protect Iran from the next contemplated Israeli drone strike or any thought America has about, any military action against Iran. What's the downside for them? Opinion? They don't care about opinion. How much?
I think Norm's internet froze again.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just respond. It's not the opinion of the West that the U.S. that Iran is, cares about as much. It's more Russia and China, and other countries that support it, because they have gone on the record that they don't want Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. Iran is part of a nuclear deal, even though the nuclear deal is not really enforced at the moment. It's still part of a nuclear agreement with Russia and China that promises that Iran won't develop a nuclear weapon. Iran is also part of the non-proliferation treaty. To develop a nuclear weapon would break that treaty.
So you what about if they have a weapon? People will be like, if they have a bomb, it's like, why are you not using it? I think because they really, it will make the world more afraid of them. You're saying that the people will like them more?
Listen, what I'm saying is it's not an easy decision to make, right? Like if they have a nuclear weapon, it does give them some assurance. It does give them some deterrence, right? But they are already pretty deterred. I mean, the United States isn't going to war with Iran. Israel can go to war with Iran, but if Israel goes to war with Iran, it's going to have to deal with the blowback from Hezbollah and from Israel too. It's not a simple war to fight. Iran has already shown that it's willing to fire its ballistic missiles and things like that, and can target population centers particularly in places like Dubai or Saudi Arabia, that makes it difficult for other countries to want to support a war against Iran. So Iran is fairly deterred, or Iran has, for the most part, deterred aggression against its territory. I mean, remember, Iran fired 110 ballistic missiles against Israel. Israel responded, mostly because of American pressure, with one missile against Iran, right? To show that they could do it. But Iran has been able to sort of get away with stuff for a long time. So the need for a nuclear bomb is not necessarily clear cut. Obviously, they have put in the energy, the time. They have suffered the consequences of pursuing a nuclear enrichment program and a nuclear weapons program. At least that officially ended some time ago, but probably still exists. They're not doing this because they have no interest in developing a nuclear bomb at some point, but they already have enough nuclear material to develop a bomb now. So there are reasons why they haven't done it, and I'm suggesting what some of those reasons might be.
So,
right? I mean, theoretically, they could do it tomorrow, but there's a reason why they're not doing it.
So, what do you think the future holds? What's the best scenario for the world and for Iran itself, the people of Iran? I mean, what's the best?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, which one? What does the future hold, or what's the best scenario?
Both. What would be the future hold for Iran? And because the more they making more and more enemies, and they unifying other people, unlike because what they're doing with Houthis to Saudi Arabia, they're doing the same with Hezbollah to Hamas to Israel, with Hamas to Israel. Houthis, like, for a while was a big problem for Saudi Arabia. It still is, but I mean, that influence is gonna target a lot of people to be against it. So what the future holds, what's because they unifying a lot of people against them that maybe don't want to be involved, like Saudi Arabia or Dubai or Kuwait or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Iran is not popular in its region, and it's not even that popular globally. But for everything that Iran does, I would suggest that they are far less unpopular than maybe they should be. And that is because there is this constant tension in foreign policy in looking at Iran as sort of the regime, or looking at Iran as the country, right? The country of Iran is very different from other Middle Eastern countries in a lot of ways, particularly since the Islamic Revolution, because the majority of Iranians have grown sort of to really hate the things that the Islamic Republic stands for, right? And so in that respect, the country that is the least supportive of the Palestinians at the moment in the current Gaza war is Iran, the Iranian people, not the Iranian regime, but the Iranian people. And that's largely because they've gotten so sick of the issue. So Iran has actually turned the tide in its favor, and it's done that through coercion and through force. So Saudi Arabia and UAE both normalized relations with Iran in the last few years. This came after Iran, doing a missile and drone strike against Saudi Arabia's oil facilities in eastern Saudi Arabia in 2019. I mean, this was a direct attack from Iran against Saudi Arabia that Saudi Arabia didn't want to respond against. And instead of sort of trying to start a war with Iran or doubling down on its hostilities towards Iran, it did the opposite. It tried to sort of bring Iran closer to get out of its way, right? The UAE did the same thing. They may not like Iran, but they don't want to be in Iran's way. They don't feel like they have adequate defenses, and they don't feel like Iran or the United States is going to fight a war on their behalf. So they have to get out of the way. This is partly what drove them to get closer with Israel through the Abraham Accords. But it's also, partly why they've become sort of, non-confrontational with Iran. So where do I see the future going? I see the future getting worse before it gets better. Iran is imposing a war on Israel that Israel really has no choice but to react against. In doing so, Iran has sort of kept countries like Iraq and Syria and Yemen in complete disarray because they support militants in those countries that basically run the politics of those countries and prevent those countries from reforming, from stabilizing, from becoming strong and secure. Iran is strongest in countries that are weak, right? And so it benefits from the chaos in Iraq or from Syria or from the complete fracturing of Lebanon, for example. It benefits from all those places because when a country is fractured that way, Iran has a much more ability to sort of put its weapons in, put its soldiers in, and to use those territories as staging bases for war against Israel. So, to my mind, the conflict that's really sort of brewing beneath the surface of all the Middle East unrest and turmoil at the moment is this Iran-Israeli conflict. And to me, this conflict is going to get worse before it gets better. So, whether Iran goes to war with Israel at some point or whether a larger war breaks out with Iran and Israel sort of on either side of the conflict, I don't know. You're already seeing it playing out sort of in slow motion over the last, 6-7 months. But I think it's going to get worse. And I think it's going to come to a head.
Israel should attack Iran to secure its own, or that will escalate more?
I don't think it's that simple. The problem is that none of this is that simple because war is complicated and war is messy. If Israel could have just attacked Iran, they would have done so 15 years ago. But it's not that simple. Israel is a very strong military, but it's also a small country. And war against Iran is not a simple task. And the United States, would have to be involved, and the United States doesn't want to be involved in another war in the Middle East after Iraq and Afghanistan have concluded.
So, can I ask you a question? Just because we're almost done. So what I'm getting from you is that the whole ideology of jihad, paradise, martyrdom, we love death more than you love life, suicide bombing, children dying, and happy about it. This is all not really a belief that in the end, there's a political goal here, which is to get rid of America in the Middle East, and none of the religious fanaticism is actually for real. This is just a ruse. Is that really your position?
So I'm not saying anything like that.
Well,
I haven't mentioned the word jihad or martyrdom or anything. And if we're talking about,
well, let me clarify.
Groups,
let me clarify. Yeah. The reason I say that, maybe I misunderstood you, because you said that Iran's reason for wanting to fight Israel is political. They want America out of the Middle East, and I'm like, but they explain it in terms of jihad. Everything I'm saying, and you're saying no, it's not jihad. It's political.
Yeah. I don't think it's that simple. I do think it's more political than religious, but I think Iran's politics are religious, right? They see them as part of a religious construct, but it's particular to Iran. So Iran's approach to Israel, for example, is different than Al-Qaeda's approach to Israel. Iran's sort of conception of martyrdom is different. But
I'm saying they explain it in terms of what I'm saying.
They explain it in both ways.
I can't find any tweet.
I know you've gone through the Twitter feed of the Supreme Leader, but at least be humble enough to realize that you are looking at a Twitter feed from the Supreme Leader in English. You're not looking at the totality of things written in Persian by the regime itself.
So I have
at least grant me that.
I do grant you that. However, why would they present it to the world in English? Because
I think that's what's
in the most disturbing way, In other words, why would they tell their people, listen, this isn't really about the Jews, it's about politics? And then in English they say it's about the Jews. That seems backwards. It seems like normally they would say to their people, this is about the Jews, and then to the world they would say, no, this is only politics. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, listen, I don't know why you feel that when I say politics, that means somehow that Jews aren't involved. Or that religion can't be involved, right? Of course, the Jews are what Israel is. When I say that Iran wants to destroy Israel as a Jewish state, right? You can't get any more sort of Jewish-centric in terms of their politics than that, right? I don't know why this is such a contentious.
You didn't say they wanted for you. You didn't say they wanted to destroy it as a Jewish state.
I did. That's the first statement I made.
No,
I made.
You acceded to it eventually, but I mean, I had to
actually,
bash you with it.
You might have been out in his very first thing he said was as a Jewish state, specifically as a Jewish state.
I asked what were the reasons. He said colonialism and imperialism. I said, is there any other reason? No.
No, I'm saying before that he said
maybe. But in the end, I still don't understand. It seems to me that this is.
But I tell you from
I don't get it. In Persian, they're saying the more palatable thing, but in English, they're saying
no. They're not saying the more palatable thing at all. It's uglier in Persian. What I'm saying is that they think of this as political. They don't think of this as this religion is gross and we need to destroy it. These people are gross and we need to destroy them. They speak about it in political terms, right?
But so they say that this religion is gross and we need to destroy them.
No, they do not say that. Listen, within Islam and within Islamic law, Jews are accepted, right? That's an official position. They're Ahl Kitab, they're people of the book. You can't say well, you can say it, but they don't say it. They will say very ugly things about Jews. They will say they will promote every anti-Semitic conspiracy there is. They will have Holocaust denial conferences. They do all of that stuff. But I'm trying to say that the way that they articulate it is in a political manner. It's not about sort of destroying a religion. It's about destroying a religious state.
And I did make that point a few times before during the show that the religion itself does not say any of the things that people, but they try to explain it to people in a certain way. That's why I think the political part for the leaders, because they never do shit themselves. You know, they will take somebody who doesn't understand the religion and tell them, oh, look, if you kill yourself, this is what's going to happen. It's like, what about you? Why don't you go kill yourself if this is what's going to happen?
I'll just tell you, as a person, who cares about Israel because I have, roots there, and as a Jew who reads a nonstop, spewing of this anti-Jewish rhetoric, I see it as a jihadi Muslim state that wants the Jewish state out of the Middle East because they're Jewish, not because they want the United States out of the Middle East, because they want the Jewish. And this attempt to find nuance, and I am a person who appreciates nuance, I think actually leads to lesser understanding of the facts here. As Kissinger once said, beware the instinct for the capillary. And in this conversation, what I'm seeing is a lot of talk about the capillaries, and any talk of the jugular is kind of like I'm having to hey, but wait a second, what about what they say about the Jews? Hey, wait a second, what about his tweets? And this cold water is coming from me. And I mean, you're a scholar, and I mean, you could be. What do I know about it? But just it's just shocking to me that I can't. I follow the world, and I follow public statements by Iran and the Supreme Leader and Ahmadinejad and all this stuff, and somehow I was getting the total wrong impression.
But no, listen, I don't think you're getting the wrong impression. I mean, I think, listen, Iran is doing everything it can to destroy Israel, right? I don't think you're getting the wrong impression here. I think I am just perhaps articulating where this is coming from or how they talk about it in a way that is different from your understanding, right? The way that I read these words, the way you read these words might be slightly different in terms of how it resonates. But I think the end is the end, right? The means are the means, and what they're trying to achieve is pretty clear. So I don't think that you're wrong in any way to understand what the intentions are. I just think that you are perhaps not quite sort of appreciating the political aspects of what this does for Iran politically, right? That it's not just a cosmic fight between religions, that there is a political element to it. And, you know, I'm sorry I haven't convinced you of this, but you know,
I want to say something important too, because, and I think, you know, Noam and I, we talk about this all the time when we disagree or fight about it. But it's like when you say, I see Iran as a jihadist Muslim, want to destroy it. The words of jihad and Muslim is being used in a different way. It's trying to make it seem that jihad is a bad word, Muslim is a bad word, you know. So what we, and the other thing is like, and I think it's a major problem for us here in the United States, is we think that we understand the Middle East or Iran or the other leaders because we hear what they say, versus people like me, or like Professor Afshon. He's like we live there, we know what this. And I told you so many times before. Now it's like how like they will answer one thing in English and one thing in Arabic. The ideology itself. I think the people in power wants to create a war. They want to convince it that, oh, it's very political. It's not religion, because if it was religious, they would have done it themselves and would have not stopped. They wouldn't just take it in the middle. But when we put jihadist Muslim Iran, I think it goes with the notion that we trying to make this a war from Islam or Muslims against the Jews, where if you read Quran clearly, it says that there is no, you know, like say the people of the book, you know, Christians and Jews. Do they try to use it? Of course, you know, but they try to use it to the people that don't understand religion, you know. But I feel like the most important thing for them is political, in terms of staying in power, keep that war going, because that's how you fund, you know, the PLM, you know, with the Yasser Arafat and stuff. How much money they got, how much time they got, what have they done to the Palestinian people that could have been, you know, it could have been better, you know. But I feel like it really is politics. It really is greed of people. It's not jihadists. It's not Muslim. Words obviously have a bad meaning now, you know. But yeah, I don't think that there's big notion make it like, oh, it's Muslim and Islam, and that's why like when they put Islamic Republic of Iran, it's that, but has nothing to do with the religion really. Islamic State in Syria with ISIS has nothing to do with the religion. So that's my my two things. But yes, I do think that, you know, they want to destroy Israel mainly as a Jewish state, and I think you mentioned that in the beginning. But that's my my take on that. Standing ovation, clapping, anything?
Listen, I appreciate. I mean, I'm assuming that you're both Muslim, and I understand the.
I don't know. Are you Muslim, Doctor Professor?
Oh, are we doing that now?
No, I don't know.
You want to play that game?
No, not playing any game.
Well,
I was gonna
I'll
say.
tell Norm.
I was just gonna say. I mean, you don't have to answer. I was gonna say, I'm assuming you're both Muslim, and I understand the human urge to want to defend something that you care about, especially if you think that it's being implied something that's ugly about it, and that's not my intention at all. When I say jihad and
oh no, I know
radical, I'm limiting my comments to that strain of whatever it is we're talking about. So if you think I'm trying to cast Islam with a
not you
with a broad brush, or if you think that people hearing it will take it that way, I hope not. I didn't mean that, and I understand your urge to want to push back at me for that reason, but nevertheless, not at the cost of clarity, you know.
No, and I get if you see it that way, that means a lot of people see it that way. But I think this is one of the major reasons that, you know, we talk about it, is to make sure that, you know, just like when I responded to Sam Harris in your show, is like, you know, Islam and Muslims are part of the fight to make things right, you know. But yeah. So let's move on. Last thing to just about your upcoming book. You know, it's coming this summer, right? So you're saying that the invasion of Iraq started, unless you want to comment before we go about something else.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so you, in your book, you know, the story of the U.S. invasion of Iraq, how it started a storm of ever. So why don't you just give us a quick teaser?
Yeah. So, you know, we've been living with constant turmoil and unrest in the Middle East, you know, for this entire century, right? And if you include sort of Israel and Gaza, for longer than that. But since 9/11, we've kind of been in this constant tempo of conflict. And so the book was written to sort of try to make sense of this conflict, right? Because in some ways it's straightforward, in some ways it's really complicated because it involves a lot of moving people, especially when you get to the Arab Spring and the conflicts that came after the Arab Spring. But the way that I conceptualize it is that the main nexus point in what's going on is that in 2003, the U.S. invades Iraq, and the U.S. administration had really grand plans for Iraq, right? They wanted to democratize it. They wanted to sort of create a free and fair society. And they wanted Iraq to become a beacon on a hill, right? One that would inspire and influence other countries to adopt similar democratic systems so that authoritarianism would be swept aside and the hostile politics and the myopic politics of the region would subside. And Iran had a completely different vision of what they wanted for the Middle East. And the invasion of Iraq gave Iran an opening to begin to sort of expand its vision, right? And so you end up having this war beneath the war in Iraq between the United States and Iran. And Iran succeeds in that war. The U.S. pulls out of Iraq for reasons that weren't just Iran, but Iran was the main beneficiary of that conflict. And Iraq becomes the staging ground for Iran to push forward across the region with this countervailing sort of agenda that is fixated on the idea of destroying Israel as a Jewish state, but also of transforming the Middle East from a nominally pro-American region to one that would be anti-American, anti-Israel, and also in line with Iran's sort of larger objectives, right? And so I follow that story through the Iraq War, through the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring makes it much more complicated because you get Turkey and Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Qatar all involved in regional conflicts. But at the end, Iran is kind of the last man standing. Iran succeeds in those conflicts in ways that the other countries don't. It outlasts its rivals, it outcompetes its neighbors, which sets up this larger conflict that Iran is now sort of no longer has many obstacles in sort of its larger ambitions towards Israel. And that's, you know, the book ends at the end of October 2023. So in response to the October 7th attacks and where everything's going, right? And so the end of the book is all about the Iran-Israeli conflict and where the Middle East is going and how that's going to shape sort of the Middle East future for the foreseeable future.
How do you think it ends, the Arab-Israeli conflict?
Well, on a long enough timeline, I don't think Iran will succeed. I think Israel will remain. I think the Islamic Republic will cease to be. But I don't know how long that timeline is. I don't know if that's 10 years, if that's 50 years, if that's 100 years, or what. But I think it's going to get worse. I think conflict is going to grow. I think Iran is going to force Israel into a fight. I think after Gaza is settled in whatever way it is, it's going to be almost inevitable that the war expands and that Israel and Iran become more involved in the conflict.
Is Israel right for going into southern Lebanon and getting rid of Hezbollah?
Listen, Israel has every right to defend its territory and the security of its citizens. Going into Lebanon is difficult. I mean, remember they did this in 2006 and didn't succeed.
I don't mean
in
from the
uprooting.
Israeli. I don't mean whether what you think logistically they can succeed. I'm saying morally and legally, would Israel be perfectly justified, and should they want to, if they can do it successfully, going into southern Lebanon and destroying Hezbollah, given all the rockets that are coming in and the fact that Hezbollah didn't withdraw to the Litani River as they agreed to?
If you take away logistics, it's a different question, right? But let's just say, do they have the right and legitimacy to want to get rid of Hezbollah? Absolutely. Same thing with Hamas. Same thing with anybody that's launching missiles at Israel.
Legal and moral right.
Legal, I have no idea. International law is not my
you know that rockets are coming into Israel from Hezbollah. How much international law do you need to know?
Because Hezbollah is not Lebanon. I mean,
they're in
Lebanon.
They're in Lebanon. Yeah, I mean, we had attacks coming to us from Afghanistan, sort of, and we invaded Afghanistan. That was nobody said that. I mean, that wasn't that if that passed international law.
Well, I mean, it also had a UN security mandate, right? So
are we unsure? Are we unsure of international law? So unsure of international law that we don't know that if you're getting attacked from a foreign country, you have the right to defend yourself?
No, I think for me, if you comment from if the attack comes from a foreign country, you have the right to, in my opinion. But if Hezbollah, in
your opinion, this is the most basic. Everybody knows that.
No, what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is Hezbollah is not just like Hamas. It's complicated because they're occupying.
That doesn't matter. Israel has a right to. No country has. Nobody can say, "Listen, we don't belong in this country, so you don't. So legally, you can't do anything to us."
No, but why do you care about the legally? I tell you what.
I'm asking. I care about legally because I'm curious. If we can't get past legally, then how can you? Oh, come on!
I know, but I tell you, when ISIS attacked the Christians in Egypt and they were in Libya, Egypt attacked Libya. You know, they didn't say
this is so basic. There are missiles coming into Israel from southern Lebanon. There's also a UN resolution that where Hezbollah promised to withdraw to behind the Litani River. But even without the UN resolution, and there's 150,000 rockets there. Of course, Israel has. Of course, Israel has every legal and moral right to go in there and do whatever it wants.
If you know, you ask a legal question. So we obviously, but what I'm saying is like you can. You see, you do this all the time. If you don't get the answers, then we not.
This is not. I can't believe I'm not getting it. This is
like legal, right? You said legal.
Yes, I mean, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, I don't know what to say.
You should ask. What do you think? Do we have the moral obligation? Yes, you do. You defend yourself, whatever. You know, you're asking a legal. It's like medical opinion. He's asking something specific. You know, I don't know what the legal issue is.
I didn't ask you. I asked the expert.
He's not expert on legal.
No, everybody knows enough about international law to know that when you're attacked, you have the right to retaliate.
Well, then you've answered your own question.
Now, there's another layer to the analysis vis-a-vis Gaza and the West Bank, which is, I think, debated in bad faith, which is these are occupied territories. So, like, can you attack an occupied territory? This gets into the weeds, and so, but this is not that. This is international borders. Another country is attacks coming from another country, and then a country is receiving attacks. Do they have the right legally to retaliate? Of course they do. Everybody knows this. Well, everybody knows this.
Yes, but you're not listening to what I'm saying. Okay, I am saying if it's a country, of course you can. Hezbollah is Lebanon.
There is no. Hezbollah is in Lebanon, so Israel has the right to retaliate into Lebanon.
Sure. Yes.
Lebanon
should.
Lebanon should.
Okay. Here's what I found. Okay. It says
I didn't mean attack. I don't know. Okay.
Okay. Well, maybe it's you're trying to make it sound like the world is against, but it's not. You know, if somebody attack my country, I want my country to defend my people and go whatever. You know, and then the law is going to come later. You have to attack. You have to defend your people. If another country attack you, of course, attack that country. If there's a group in that country, yes, attack that group. But don't attack the whole country with the civilians. That's how I think of it.
Why would they attack the whole country? to get rid of. Obviously, they go. I said southern Lebanon. Oh, come on.
What's the same thing happening in Gaza right now?
No, it's not the same thing happening. What are you saying?
You're saying why would they attack the civilians to get a group? That's exactly what's going on.
If they hide among the civilians, then the civilians may get killed. That's different than attacking the civilians.
Sure. Okay.
You understand the difference between attacking civilians and hiding behind civilians and civilians getting killed?
You think Hezbollah's not going to hide behind civilians?
I think they will.
Okay.
But that's so what are you saying? That's a war crime to hide behind civilians.
I know that.
War crimes are not supposed to be used as a strategy to protect yourself.
I know that.
But right now, but that's what's going on is that the world is saying now, we're getting very close to it, that war crimes are not a something that the victims are supposed to be able to call on the aggressors. It's something that the aggressors can use to defeat the victims. Israel, this is not occupied territory. These are not Palestinians. Israel is the generic victim here from Iranian proxies that are attacking it. And you're saying, yes, but they're committing this war crime, so Israel, therefore, shouldn't be able to retaliate.
I didn't say that.
That's exactly what you're saying. Precisely what you're saying.
I said attack Hezbollah.
Precisely
what
it's
not.
Saying. You said, don't you think Hezbollah is going to hide behind civilians? Yes, they will. That's a war crime.
I was the one that said, don't you think Hezbollah is going to hide behind civilians?
That's what I just said.
But then get them when they're not hiding behind civilians. That's what I'm saying.
How do you do that?
So if they were hiding,
how do you do that?
Well, I don't know. Just like you did it before. You know, you did it before, just like you did with all the Hezbollah commanders.
Let me tell you something. Right now, I don't know, 100,000, 80,000, the number, I see different numbers of people are evacuated in northern Israel.
Yeah.
As I've said before, if you compare it to San Diego or Cincinnati or any American city being evacuated, without a single person being killed, America would go to war. There is no way we're evacuating Queens forever for any of the things that you're saying. It's so foul. And until I hear arguments like that, I really don't think the world's against Israel.
Well, here's the problem.
But I'm not finished. But then when I hear such ridiculous arguments that I would never, would anybody argue, you know what, England, yes, it's true you had to evacuate London, but you know, you have to worry about blah, blah, blah. Because of course, if anybody attacked London in such a way that London had to be evacuated, we wouldn't spend 2 seconds discussing this. We'd say, of course, London's going to go to war. England's going to go to war. Somehow, Israel is not considered to be a real country.
Well, let me respond.
You tell me, do you really want to look me in the eye and tell me that if London were evacuated, we'd be debating whether England could go to war?
But
of course not.
Well, can I answer? The problem is with what you're saying in general is you give scenarios where every country, I just told you, if my country get attacked, I'm going to attack the other country. But you want to do it. And the rest of the world clap for you if you kill civilians. No, there is price for war. I'm sorry.
You're just making shit up now.
I'm not making shit up.
You're bringing stuff up. You're bringing stuff up. And I'm going to post this clip on YouTube. You're bringing up stuff I never even possibly could have alluded to.
Well, can I listen?
I asked a simple question.
Let me answer.
Does Israel have the legal and moral right to retaliate against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon? And you're saying now that I'm saying, blah, I don't even know what you just said. It's nonsense.
All right, let me answer. Can I answer without interrupting? You're saying that if Queens is, we're going to clear Queens, would we attack? Of course we would attack. Can Israel attack? Of course it should attack. But when you attack, don't ask me to have the legal rights when I don't know what the legal rights is. What I'm saying is, like, if you go into war, you have every right to defend yourself. You have every right to do whatever you want to do. But if you commit a war crime, if you kill civilians, you had to be held accountable.
So you suspect that if London had to be evacuated, you suspect, like, you don't feel confident enough with international law to say, no, if London had to be evacuated because of the aggressive action of a foreign country, I know England would have a legal right to retaliate.
In a foreign country. In a
group in a foreign country. You suspect that the law might be, England, you're shit out of luck.
I would have the exact same thing.
So just answer me yes or no. You suspect that the law might be that London might have to evacuate, and the law would say that's the way it is. No more London. You suspect that's possible?
No, I'm saying the exact same thing. You're trying to put words on my mouth. What I'm saying is very simple. You have the right to defend yourself, and you should. But if you do so, any country in the world, and people die or commit a war crime from either side, you should be held accountable for. That's it. How is that wrong?
That's not wrong. But to say that people should be held accountable for war crimes is non
Both
sequitur
sides.
to my question.
Sure.
I didn't say anything about war crimes. I didn't say to you, if Israel attacks Hezbollah and commits war crimes, is that okay? Of course, it's not okay.
That's what I'm saying. I said you
yeah,
have
but it's not an
every
answer.
right.
But that's what you're saying. But it's nothing to do with the question.
It's the same question that you ask it. Do you have the right? Yes, you have every right to defend yourself. Protect your people. Don't live like this anymore. Do whatever you want. But if anybody commit, just like Hamas should be held accountable for what they did in Israel, Israel should be held accountable for what we did. So if I told you when Egypt was attacked from Libya, we attacked Libya. We attacked ISIS. I don't care.
Listen, they asked the American administration and they asked the ICJ if Israel's committed war crimes. No one has said yes. If Israel has committed war crimes, and by the way, I would, if I had to bet, I would bet that there have been some war crimes committed because I don't know that I don't know that there's any war in any army that hasn't committed
absolutely
war crime. But however, this has nothing to do. It's a distraction. It's a strategy. It's a tactic to take the conversation into a place so as not to be talking about the what it is that I'm asking about. And
you're asking if you have the right,
and I resent that. Let's just stay from all our future conversation. Let's stipulate that war crimes are not okay, and that any conversation we're having is assuming that we're not talking about sanitizing war crimes.
So why are you asking about the law? Do they have the law? If this is exactly what I'm saying, you have every right to do whatever you want.
I'll answer you why I asked, because he said that he thought in the future was Israel was going to take further action. So my question was, the natural question, do you think Israel's legally and morally justified to take the further action? It's the most natural question in the world. And it could have just been like, yeah. It didn't have to be nothing. There had to be nothing more than a yeah. They do.
Well, Professor said morally yes. Correct. You can. I'm sorry. We've been.
I'm not going because I'm angry. I'm going because I have 20 minutes to take a shower and get on the road to be not late for another appointment. And Professor, I actually like you because you have a good spirit to you, even though I've been so mean. Okay, bye. I have to go.
Are you going to cellar? Yeah. So. We always get into that when he loses the conversation. No, but he really did have a meeting because we were supposed to end at 2. But this is the thing, is like you always, I think, and that happens from both sides. They always try to turn the argument to something else and not go. I'm not talking about I'm talking about both sides. Even if I'm arguing one thing, but if somebody attacked, this is what I feel. I feel like Israel is being attacked. They want to defend themselves. But then they want the world to say, oh, everything you're doing is okay. No, you have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to do whatever you want. But if you commit one crime, if you kill one innocent person, you should be held accountable for. And that goes for both ways, But
sure. I mean, listen, these wars aren't easy.
Yeah. Especially for people like
my point with Norm is like, listen, I'm not an international law scholar. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of things I don't know. Does Israel have the right to defend itself? Of course it does. But there's cost to going to war, and Israel knows that. The 2006 war was indicative of how complicated it is to fight Hezbollah. It's not straightforward. There's a reason why they haven't just invaded Lebanon.
And so Palestinians have the right to defend themselves, not Hamas, obviously. Well, Palestinian. I actually read a very interesting article about if a civilian in Gaza defend themselves, is that count as a terrorist? And of course they said no, because you have the right to defend yourself. So your book, just 2 more minutes and then we'll let you go. I know I took a lot of your time and I appreciate that. So for your book, what you felt that the war in Iraq kind of turned things around for the whole world.
Yeah. I mean, it creates this opening where the regional order begins to change, right? And the changing regional order in the Middle East is, or at least the effort to change the regional order in the Middle East, resonates with or reflects the larger effort to change the global order that countries like Russia and China are currently pursuing, right? So Iran's effort in this regard is kind of an adjunct of what Russia and China are trying to pursue in the larger sort of global geopolitical competition with the United States. It's happening in the Middle East, but it reflects what's happening in other places as well.
Well, I mean, Iran is like it or not, is a big player, and I think like there's a lot of reason. And now, even with the election come, there's a lot of talk about policies against Iran with Iran. Do this, not do this. You have to understand. That's why I think this conversation is very important because I think people should form their own opinion about what's the right course of action. That we should do and understand that voting for somebody with certain, not necessarily that the general policy of the United States is going to change. But I think understanding why it got there. A lot of times, I feel like people deal with the current events and they don't see why it happened, and that's why I think books like this is very important because I was, like I was a kid, but during the first Gulf War, and I saw a lot of things, and things changed forever from then, and it affected the whole world. That's why I think it's very important for people to read a book like this and understand. And your first book is also like amazing. So I think people should get an understanding. It's a great book to read, and I'll leave the link in the description of this episode. And thank you so much for being here and for the argument. Noam is a very nice guy. He likes to fight. That's what he does. He lives for that. But he's very reasonable, and he gets he gets emotional. Obviously, like the war is hard on everybody.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, I appreciate where he was coming from.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to sort of convince him of what I was trying to say.
No one ever did. He's never convinced. Like even my brilliant answer to him, which let's see if it's gonna put in YouTube now. But thank you so much. If people want to follow you or the book, I'm gonna leave the link here. But if people want to follow you or buy the book, can you please let them know where to follow you, where to find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter at A Ostovar, first initial and last name. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and hope to see you. If you come in New York, come and visit us. Just email me, text me. We'll always hang out, Noam and I, and a lot of people from the news and all over, and we debate all the time. It's actually a lot of fun in person because we can say whatever we want. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.